Hi, everyone. Welcome to WisconsinSportsStream.com and the Tom Pipines Show with John Dodds and the real star, LeRoy Butler. You betcha, Packers historian John Dodds. Now, I call him the savant, but someone said, I don't know if anyone knows what that means. Full disclosure,
I don't know what it means.
I don't know what it means myself.
Sounds
but
good,
it sounds
though.
great.
Yeah.
And, of course, the Hall of Famer LeRoy Butler, who will be in Canton before you know it. We're going to discuss a football rivalry that is unquestionably the most compelling, long-standing matchup in all of professional football. They don't call the NFC the black and blue division for nothing. I am, of course, talking about the Packers-Bears rivalry. As of December 16th, 2018, there have been a total of 198 games between these two wonderful franchises since the first league game in 1921. Green Bay's won 97. And you've had the Bears winning 95, about a half dozen ties. This has been unbelievable. Going way back, the largest margin, 61-7 in 1980. 10 games from 1994 through 98. It was all LeRoy Butler, Brett Favre, and company. Gentlemen, it is an honor to be with you again, and LeRoy, really appreciate you coming by. You know a whole bunch about this rivalry because you were a big part of it when the Packers made their resurgence.
Yeah, I think for the most part the NFL got it right for this particularly the 100th season to have the oldest rivalry. And if you put this rivalry with all of sports, it's still number one. And back in the 80s, the teams really didn't like each other. And then you start to see Brett and Urlacher kind of talking on the field. But at the end of the day, and then you saw people like Edgar Bennett go play in Chicago, Steve McMichael come to the Packers. You start sharing players, Amos coming to the Packers. So when you play a team a lot, it's very different. And the different thing about it is when you're so close. People in Kenosha, Racine, I apologize to America, they don't know these cities, but it's okay. Paris, Wisconsin, all of these people in that area in 1986 went towards the Bears because they won the Super Bowl. But for some reason back in the 90s, in 1996, it started to change a little bit. And the Green Bay Packers kind of took off, and that was the beginning of 30 years of misery over the Packers winning the Super Bowl.
Think back, John, to Curly Lambeau and George Halas. I mean, this rivalry is incredible, and for LeRoy and company, again, a part of that, to come surging back and actually take the lead in this series. In a series, am I not right, that is separated? You brought that up by 7 points after all these years?
Sure. Wayne Larrivee added up last year all the points that were scored in the entire series, and the difference was Packers had 7 more points at one time last year, which was amazing. Yeah, there's a lot of interesting history. Curly Lambeau was a star at Green Bay East, played for Newt Rockne at Notre Dame, was the blocking fullback for George Gipp. So he came back over Christmas vacation, about 1919 or so, developed tonsillitis, and back then, before antibiotics, they put you in a sanitarium and you're done for about 3 months. So he missed going back to his second semester, said, forget about it, I'll start a football team up here, talked to the Acme Packing Company, the Indian Packing Company. That became the Green Bay Packers in 21. George Halas was a star athlete for Illinois, and he was the Rose Bowl MVP of 1919 Rose Bowl for Illinois. Also played baseball for the New York Yankees, believe it or not. Was a right fielder before Babe Ruth, just before Babe Ruth stopped being a pitcher and went to right field. So Halas then went to Illinois and worked for this a company called the Decatur Staley Company, or Staley Company in Decatur, and he operated, I believe he was the manager of their baseball team and football team. When they went out of business, he took the football team to Chicago, and after 1 year renamed it the Bears because of the Cubs. The Cubs relationship said, we'll be the Bears because we're bigger. So that was in 1921 or so. The Packers were kicked out of the NFL because Curly Lambeau was using Notre Dame football players under assumed names, paying them cash and getting them out of town on Sunday afternoons. So the NFL complained, and the NFL kicked Green Bay out. So Green Bay had to raise $2,500 to buy back in, and they did with businesses and going door to door. By 1932, in the Depression, George Halas was having trouble making a payroll. And he had a very big gate coming later in the year, I think when the Giants were coming into town, into Wrigley. So he asked the bank if they could guarantee, if they could stick their neck out a little bit and let him extend the credit, and they wouldn't do it. So he called up Curly Lambeau, and Curly Lambeau agreed to guarantee that line of credit. Because he did that, Halas never forgot that. He got the big gate later in the year. He kept the team. So the Halas family kept the team. So when the Packers were building their stadium in the late 40s and early 50s, they had to remember how much Bob Harlan had trouble getting the government entities and the people behind selling bonds.
Yeah.
Same thing back in the 40s and 50s, and George Halas did a barnstorming tour through Wisconsin. So there's a lot of history going back, but if you look at the Bears, they're very much like the Packers, except the Packers, they're a public company. Because they didn't have ownership. Curly Lambeau and Vince Lombardi ultimately left because they wanted ownership, they wanted to make more money for what they had done. The Halases have the team, but they don't have any other business like a George Steinbrenner had steel or shipping and something. So the McCaskey family now owns the team, and that's really their value. It's a $2 billion asset, but it's illiquid.
I think you've just covered about 5 decades. You're unbelievable, and I think John may have covered that. I'm not sure, but no love lost, LeRoy, between these two marvelous franchises. We talk about perhaps the greatest history in all of sport, going back to the late Forrest Gregg and Mike Ditka and all that went on there, and Charles Martin slamming Jim McMahon. What was it like to play in that rivalry?
Well, as a rookie, I remember one of my favorite Packers of all time, Brian Noble. He sat me down and talked about it. Because I'm coming from Florida State. We used to play University of Florida, and we didn't like Miami. He combined those two teams to say that's how it is against the Bears. The Bears, when you play these guys, it's not about the record. It's about you winning, because the fans say you play these guys twice, and those are 2 games we expect you to win. And as a rookie, you don't really know what it's all about. But for me, it was different, though, because one of my favorite coaches was Dick Duran. When he became the coach of the Bears, it was different. It was like the Hatfield and McCoys. I mean, it was like, okay, I'm going to get a 15-yard penalty. They're going to get a 15-yard penalty. Next thing you know, you see, guys throwing, Jim McMahon getting thrown on his head. That's the kind of rivalry it used to be. And then next thing you know, the millennials come, it changes a little bit. But ultimately, you always felt like in this division, if you beat Chicago, it's a big physical team that likes to run the football and play great defense. And you kind of model after that. And it was just one of the teams we look forward to playing because, again, it just in a lot of the households in Wisconsin and on the border in, right there in Illinois, people were different. And I think that's what made a great rivalry. And like I say, in all of sports, for some reason, these two teams didn't like each other, but at the same time, it was a fun rivalry.
Now, number 4 obviously helped engineer all your dominance. What was it like to know that you were going to dominate them every time out?
Well, I tell you what, every time I saw Reggie White getting dressed and Brett Favre getting dressed, I knew we had a chance to win. that helps. But it was always to demoralize the quarterback. I mean, from Jim Harbaugh to Mike Tomczak, you can name all the quarterbacks, Kramer, all these quarterbacks. We always talked about just because our quarterback never missed a game, of course. We was lucky. So we always talked about just demoralizing the quarterback and winning at their place. That was always on the board. It was always bulletin board material, but we did it ourselves. Want to beat Chicago in Chicago. Of course you're going to beat them at home. And that's the kind of stuff. And you know what? And Pip, if you think about it, and John, the practices were different. Normally we wouldn't have on pads. Okay. We wouldn't have on pads. Mike Holmgren wanted to keep us fresh. Sure. But for Bear Week, I said, wait a minute, why are the pads in my locker? We're going to do some tackling. Why just this week? Everything was ratcheted up, and it was all because of this rivalry, and it still continues today.
Amazing. John?
Yeah, one thing, when Mike Holmgren came in 92, I remember the Packers played the Bears in about October of 92. The Bears are ahead 30-10. And Holmgren was from California. He wasn't really into the rivalry. I don't understand it. And everybody just calmed down, and it's just another game. Yeah. And final series of the game, Chicago is taking a knee, running out the clock, and you guys put 11 people in the box to try to force a fumble. It's 30-10, and all of a sudden Harbaugh bends down, does this, and goes back and throws 3 or 4 straight plays that were deep, about 50 yards. And Holmgren, just his eyes opened up, and he walked across the field at the end of the game to shake Ditka's hand, and Ditka said to him, "You put 11 in the box, I don't care what the score is. We're going to pass it over you. We're going to pass it over you until you get those 11 out of the box. You got it?" And Holmgren just looked at him. And Holmgren came into the press room that I was in afterward, and he sat down and he had his eyes open, and he just said, "I get it now.
Yeah.
I understand what this is all about. I didn't understand it." Do you remember that game where?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So that was the baptism of Holmgren, where he finally realized. So this is why. And then later in the year, you came back and beat Chicago at Soldier Field.
Yeah, and you're right about that, because coming from San Francisco, it was against Dallas. That was a rivalry, and they played on the West Coast, the NFC West. He didn't know a lot about it, just as I was. I mean, that's like I said. You get Ken Ruckers, and you see some of these guys telling you about this rival with the Bears. So when I'm sitting back thinking, who's going to open up for this year? It makes sense for it to be the Bears and the Packers. Yeah. I mean, because we have people now, guys, are still talking about the Bears were the team that put out the Packers last year for them having a chance to get into the playoffs. And we also talk about teams. I remember that play back in Soldier Field when this happened, and you think about all these kind of things. The 99-yarder, to Brett Favre, to Robert Brooks, these Bears games. Yes. It just seemed like those are the games people always say, where were you when these games happened? It was always a lot of fun.
LeRoy, what are your memories, and I know there are so many, but from the rivalry that stick out from a participation standpoint? Maybe a play you made, or a play one of your teammates made, or even a play a Bears player.
Well, I just referenced part of it. I remember the Bears did a trick play. It's two stories. I remember they did a trick play. The running back got the ball from Kramer. He ran into the line, and then he pitched it back to Kramer to throw it deep. And for some reason, I think one of the biggest things we talk about as players, if a guy looks like he's doing something different, something's up. And I saw the receiver running downfield, but he wasn't blocking. And he was just kind of jogging. I said, something's up. And I was the deep safety. So he gets the ball back, he throws it deep, and I'm running. I said, I don't believe he just threw this ball. Does he see me? Because I'm back there. I intercepted at the 1-yard line. The next play, that's when Brett Favre hit Robert Brooks for 99 yards. I'll never forget that. And another play was, we played them up there in Chicago. It was a monsoon. It was 50-mile-an-hour winds. You remember that game?
Halloween.
Yeah. Yes, Halloween. Yeah. I said they're gonna forfeit the game. The field was coming up. I mean, it was mud.
How hard was it to play? That stuff?
Brett Favre had an amazing game.
Yeah.
I mean, that guy was amazing anyway. But that game, I really thought. Just 2 times I thought they would forfeit games. When I did the first leap when I was 17 below, I never heard of wind chill before, but they say there's wind chill today. I didn't know it. I thought it was just
for a kid from Florida to do that. That's impressive.
I was shocked. But that game on Halloween, I said there's no way we can play, because the referees wouldn't let us warm up because the wind was just side to. I mean, it was just blowing over. But one thing that got me and made me feel good about wearing that G. I saw Packer fans in the stadium. Yeah. The Bears fans was gone. The Packers, they waiting to see the game. And they were loud, those 10 or 15,000 people. And I'm telling you, I'll never, ever forget that game. And it just seemed like in that weather, that's what it means to be in a rivalry. When you have that weather in the mud. And, and like I said, Brett had a great game. And then all the coaches, you could see nothing but their eyes because they had all this stuff on. For wind and for rain, and we just played in the game. And I just remember getting fresh socks at halftime. I said, wait a minute, why am I going to put on fresh socks? They're going to get wet anyway. Yeah. So it just felt like being a real tough guy, where the guys had to go through in the 50s and the 60s playing in the game like that.
That was supposed to be when Gale Sayers and Dick Butkus were going to be honored at halftime.
Yes, that's right.
And so there's probably about 20,000 people there at halftime, and 15,000 of them were Packer fans. People who were at the game told me that the rain was coming down in one end zone and landing in the other end zone.
I couldn't believe it.
Yeah,
I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
I was shocked that game was allowed to play. But it wasn't any lightning. I don't remember.
No.
But it was just bad.
Yeah, Mike Ditka has said that he thought the greatest team he's ever seen in his career was the '62 Packers. And they had 11 Hall of Famers out of their 22 starters. And
That's amazing.
In that year, they beat a very good Bear team 49-0 in Green Bay and then 38-7 in Chicago. So it's 87-7. And so I think that was in the back of Mike Ditka's mind to say that whenever the Packer, it's game on. And so I attended Marquette, which means 40% of my friends are from Illinois and they're Bear fans. So we'd always be doing this a lot. And they'd say, oh no, Mike Ditka has the best team in the NFL. The Packers are not very good. And so not only were they good, he put the 350-pound defensive lineman in the backfield. And I said, so I'd always make an argument to him. 10 years later, it's 1996. It's 37-6 in Soldiers Field. Beebe took the kickoff back. Freeman had the Hail Mary at the end of the first half. There's all these things going on in the game. Wouldn't it have been great if Mike Holmgren had put Gilbert Brown in the backfield just because he's a great athlete, just to show off his athleticism? What would you think of that? Mike Ditka would have probably exploded on the sideline. What did you think when you watched that on TV, when you saw the fridge in the backfield when you were in high school? Or
It was shocking. It really was, because my uncle was, Pip know this story, my uncle was the biggest Walter Payton fan in America. When I got drafted, he's sitting there with his Walter Payton jersey, and he told my mom, anybody better call this phone but the Packers. I don't care what the team is, because I hate the Packers. You please do that. We had rotary phones back then, so these millennials, Siri wasn't born yet. So this is a first-class rotary phone that you dial up. It has this long cord from here to South Milwaukee. It's a long cord, and when that phone rang, it was Lee Rimmel, the Green Bay Packers, and I'll never forget. And I was so excited, but I knew in the back of my head my uncle's gonna just go nuts. He put on Lindy Infante, who to me was just a god at the time, because Lindy Infante go all the way back to USFL league with the Jacksonville, I think they were the Bulls, something. It was a Jacksonville team for the USFL. Yeah. So people knew his offense would do all this good stuff. And he said, do you have any questions? Because we're going to take you with the 48th pick. I said, yes. Where's Green Bay? He said, what are you talking about? I said, well, where's Green Bay? Don't y'all play in Milwaukee? Yeah. So when we told my uncle, and he saw the little crawl that they take, he runs out of the house, just really upset. This is not manufactured. He is really upset. My mom just locks the door, and we're just having fun. He tried to beat his way back in. But when they didn't give Walter Payton the ball to score in the Super Bowl, they gave it to the fridge.
Oh, yeah.
My uncle, at that point, that was his chance right there to become a Packer fan, because they said disrespected Walter Payton.
And poor George Cumbie, the linebacker, he probably weighed about 220. He was just getting mauled.
Yes. I mean, I think a lot of people thought that, right? You would give it to Sweetness in the Super Bowl.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
That was him crossing over to being a Packer fan. Yeah. He never was a Bears fan again. I mean, that was a historical moment in the Butler household. Yeah. My uncle, how can you not give the ball? You've been the smartest guy in the room. He's just complaining. We're listening. Smartest guy in the room. You'll give it to the fridge because it's a big headline, but you should have gave it to Sweetness. Takes his Bears jersey off. I'm like, dude, I was going to high school. I'm like, calm down. Yeah. He was very upset about that.
Right. I was at a Super Bowl party that year, and all Packer fans, about 50 people, and here's the Bears, the best team in the NFL, 85, one of the amazing defenses of all time.
And had a good fullback.
And they had a young team, the youngest team in the NFL. So it looked like the next decade was going to be, this could be this could be the Pittsburgh Steelers or whatever. So they said to me, John, give us something to, spin this. How can we spin this? And I said, well, there's only two positives I can see as a Packer fan. They featured the fridge on the goal line instead of Payton.
Right.
this is a guy that carried you for decades.
Yes.
And it was more of a Buddy Ryan, Mike Ditka. Buddy Ryan didn't like the fridge.
You're
and
right
so
about that.
it was a Ditka Ryan thing.
Yep.
And the second thing is I said that when the Packers won in 61 and 62, Bart Starr was a spoke in the wheel. But by the time 65, 66, 67, all the other guys got older, Bart Starr carried him. He became the Hall of
LeRoy, I want to get into more current, obviously,
Yes.
with you and having the privilege of having you with us here. But I also would ask this. Older players, Packers, legends, you met them all, you know, so many of them. What was that like to kind of go back and forth, the fraternity, the brotherhood, and to talk specifically about those games between Green Bay and Chicago?
That's a good question, because I remember meeting Ray Nitschke, and I just know he had a huge hand, and he shook my hand, and he was just shaking his, and I was like, man, tell me about Butkus.
Yeah.
He said, you know what, I knew if I outplayed him that we were going to win games. But he said at the end of the day, just getting dressed to play against a team that you know that wants to take your head off was exciting to him. He got all excited about it. And, you know, of course, you know, Bart Starr just passed, so bless him and rest in peace. Bart Starr talking about the games where he coached in and played in, that rivalry meant a lot. And I just think that when you think about the Dave Robinsons, who's for 38 years waiting to get into the Hall of Fame, and all of the Bear games, that he told me one of his best games of playing. And it was just, you talk about all these guys from the 60s and the 70s who paved the way for us. You would think that you want to keep that going. And that's the reason why, you know, that players of my era, Super Bowl, 31, they really want Aaron Rodgers and this group to continue the dominance over the Bears. Because if you can do that, you're going to be in position to win the division and ultimately go to the Super Bowl. That was just the one team you felt like you had to beat physically, though. It just thinks about being the physical type, beating a team like this. It was everywhere. I mean, the interns that give you the press clippings, you have like a little press clippings now, it would always be Bear stuff. Anything they did up there, you knew about it. If they fired and hired an intern or a secretary, you knew about it. Because they didn't want the media to ask you a question you didn't know. Yeah. So you had to know everything about Chicago, and it was just interesting. But when Steve McMichael came into the locker room, and Jim McMahon, people who, because McMahon was on our Super Bowl team,
right.
And we go to the White House.
This is a wonderful story.
We're like, he's a little off-putting.
Yeah.
But so am I. He's very loquacious. I mean, all of that. Something's up with this guy. And I'm going to wear my Bears jersey underneath my suit. So I, being the player I am, I say, well, I don't know if this is approved or not. But do what you want to do. I don't care. This is a once-in-a-lifetime thing. This is your second Super Bowl, whatever. And we never really cared about it. But he was showing people, and we actually thought it was funny. Yeah. But some of the fans took exception to it, and they didn't like it. They said, you're not really taking it serious. Because he wanted to wear and I love Jim McMahon. He's a great guy, one of my favorite players. Matter of fact, when we golf, he didn't golf in shoes. He golfed barefoot. He's a scratch golfer, barefoot. Wow. And that's amazing. He would wear these glasses, the same glasses that Arnold Schwarzenegger from Terminator. Yeah. And he's sitting there with the glasses. So one of the Secret Service guys said, you can't have on shades in the pictures or nothing, what you're doing. And they said, don't go down that hallway. There's certain places in the White House you can't go. And every place they told Jim not to go or stand, that's where he was. And they was like, well, it's Jim McMahon, let him do what he wants. But yeah, that's not a myth. He really had the jersey on underneath it. He was doing it to be funny, though, and everybody knew about it. And we actually did think it was funny, but again, the fans took exception to it.
Packers, Bears, we fast forward to 2019. Yeah. You referenced it right out of the box.
Yes.
Boy, that's going to be fun.
Yeah.
Talk to me about those two teams. And obviously the Bears won the division.
Yes.
They're the team to beat, it would appear. Mm-hmm. But how do you see all that playing out between those two teams? And LeRoy, please, the division this year.
Well, I'll be honest. You have to start with the quarterbacks. You have to start with, anytime you have any team nowadays, you have to have a quarterback to get you in a position to win games. Ultimately, I think, I'm a little biased, defense wins championships. When Chicago made the move for Khalil Mack, it changed the perception of going for it. We're going to give up these draft picks. We're going to go for it. We're getting a transcending type player. We think he's good enough to get us where we need to be. Mitch Trubisky is a quarterback. We got to move up to get him. Got to get a quarterback, because if you take how many quarterbacks they had in Chicago since Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers, you would run out of paper, okay? So they felt like they had to do those two things. And they had to get a coach that was young and innovative to give us an opportunity to beat Green Bay. So they did that. So moving forward, while all the turmoil in Green Bay, you know, Mike McCarthy's last year and not playing well, and you got a lot of injuries going on. Aaron gets hurt, come back, and then win the game, you know, in Lambeau to beat Chicago with Khalil Mack. You're thinking, okay, after all the bad things, you got one game. If you win this game against Chicago, you still may be in a position to go to the playoffs. At that time, they didn't win, of course. Now, fast forward, you think the teams have changed. Chicago has left. They don't have their defensive coordinator anymore. No. Still got Khalil Mack. You have their starting safety. So now if you can't beat them, you join them. You know, you just kind of join forces and you just try to find out what's it going to take to beat this team. They got rid of Jordan Howard. They're going to go with Cohen. It's going to be a spread offense. So the Packer defense, I think, will be better or the same, which I think is good enough to win a lot of games. On offense, it's a lot of unknowns. You really don't know. I mean, I see people say, oh, they're going to go 13-3. People say that every year, regardless of who's
drinking that Kool-Aid, right?
Yeah, and I don't mind that. I mean, it's okay, but it's hard to know when you have, to be honest with you, and really to cover the team, you don't really know, because you have a head coach who's never been a head coach, as was Mike Holmgren. We didn't really know what was going on. He's never been a head coach. He was a coordinator, as was Matt LaFleur, but he brings in his system, and everybody seemed to like his system. And then as of late, Aaron Rodgers, I think kind of people took out what he was saying out of context when he said he would like to have some freedom to audible. And that's the difference between changing plays. It really is. And I think it was some reports he was changing plays or whatever, and then Aaron said, well, you just can't, paraphrasing, just throw away 11 years of experience. You use that. I know exactly what he was saying. He wasn't saying he wanted to change plays and just throw out what Matt LaFleur was doing. What he's saying is, we're going to be a partnership. Mm-hmm. You help me, I can help you. Mm-hmm. You give me a call, the safety comes down in the box. We don't want to just run the ball right into the teeth of the defense. Let's audible and get our team in position to win games. Same thing I had to go through with Fritz Shermer. I thought Fritz Sherman should, in my humble opinion, I want to blitz more,
And you weren't afraid to tell him that either.
I just told him. Same thing with Aaron. I think people took that, oh, he's trying to change. No, he's not. He's just understanding that I would like to help you as a partnership. Because sometimes coaches can get stuck in their ways. It's my way, it's my way. But once your player reaches out to you, as I did to Fritz, it worked. Our defense worked. Eugene Robinson can go back deep. I can do 8-man fronts, go after the quarterback, cover tight ends. Aaron's going to have to do that with the running game and the passing game. And until they get that continuity down, it's a lot of unknowns. And I think the good thing about it, you have a premier wide receiver, Devontae Adams. You got Jimmy Graham back at tight end. And, of course, you have two hitters. I like Jamal very much at running back. Aaron Jones, a very capable running back. The offensive line, I wanted it to be a bigger upgrade there, but you had the best left tackle in football. So there are a lot of positives, but you get a chance to prove that day one in front of a national audience how this team has grown and how good you really can be on a national stage, because you know what people are going to see. They want to see the interaction between Aaron Rodgers and Matt LaFleur. They don't care about anything else because it was just so tumultuous between Mike McCarthy and Aaron Rodgers. So can Aaron be coached, and can Matt LaFleur let Aaron do whatever he wants? Some kind of way it has to be a happy medium, but it is a partnership. It really is. Because Brett Favre and Mike Holmgren didn't always get along, but you had the go-betweens, the coordinators. Those guys, Hackett has to figure out a way to understand that we're going to call these set of plays. Aaron likes to do this. Matt likes to do this because Matt LaFleur's going to call the plays. And then you have to have the quarterback's coach somewhere get in there and say, you know what? These are the best 15 we're going to go with, and we're good. Because if the team thinks there's some confusion on which direction you go, that can hold that offense back. And if that's the case, you don't want to do that going against a defense like Chicago day one.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if you remember the tape, but there was a tape of Holmgren going nuts on the sideline.
Absolutely.
Because Favre made an audible.
Yeah.
Why did he call that? Why did he call, come here, Kerr, why did he call that? And Andy Reid stepped in and said, no, I did that. And he turned around and he goes, you did that. He didn't do that. You did that. I did that. He goes, and he knew what Holmgren realized. I shouldn't be on Favre.
Yeah.
Okay, you took responsibility. And then Favre comes out, looks at Andy Reid, and kind of gives him like, thanks, man.
Yes.
So Mount Vesuvius didn't explode, right? He was an intense man, your former head coach.
Absolutely. Because he felt like the West Coast offense works. It's a system. To get to that level to where you want to change a play, it's not an RPO, run pass option. It's an audible. But without that, just run the play. The progression of it will work. If it's a pass play to the flat, if they got cover two and the guy's sitting in the flat, fine. Still run it because I got a guy that's off the progression, should be open behind him. Just run the play. Don't get too cute. Don't be the smartest guy in the room. This system works. Because I don't think that Montana ever changed plays with Bill Walsh, but you can see Montana always getting up there and just kind of orchestrating the defense and the offense and getting his guys where they need to be, and he'd throw the ball at a spot, and I promise I will be there. Jerry Rice is going to be there. That's the reason why Antonio Freeman over the middle was always open, or Robert Brooks. Just run the play. But that was the West Coast. This is a modified version of some of what they had last year a little bit, and what LaFleur did in Tennessee, and what he learned in, with the Rams, and what he learned with Atlanta. You use your personnel to the best of your ability. That's the reason why they got 5 tight ends right now, because they want to use multiple sets with the tight ends as well.
Not only does it have to work, but it has to work quickly because, as you know, Absolutely. Brett Favre was very young. With Holmgren, they were ascending. The window is closing on number 12. Is this partnership going to work, and how long will it take? Will it happen this season?
And that's a good question, too, because let's just think about it. Let's have an open mind now. I'm a 50-year-old young man. I'm going to hang with guys 50 years old. I'm not going to hang with guys 25. We ain't got nothing in common. I'm a family man. I'm married. So Aaron's 35. LaFleur's 39. They're going to get along just fine. Okay. But if you get a guy that's on my same level, we can challenge each other and respect each other. It's just like a marriage. When the new wife comes in, there is step kids involved, and that's the team. And some kids side with the mom and the dad in some bad breakups, as this was. But the new wife comes in, which is LaFleur. She may change some decoration around, take some pictures down, change some paint, but it's still the G, which is the family name from the dad. So you have to understand we have to be a family again, because this got all
beautifully blended.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it'll happen quicker because it's been so public.
Yeah.
Because there's been some articles about, hierarchy and how this going on. Just play the game. Aaron leads on the field. LaFleur leads off the field. That's the only way it can work. Otherwise, you'll get guys taking sides as they do around the league. Especially that happened in Detroit with their new coach, and it happens in Minnesota because they thought they were one quarterback away with Cousins, but it was more things. They were firing coaches during the season. It was just got all out of hand. You don't want that. You got to win this division by being together. And you have to respect one another, because I'm not trying to be a historian like John. My brain is not like his. It's just not. I accept that.
It's good.
I try to use that
You're
information.
in my camp, I'll tell you that.
Well, I try to use his information. I'm not trying to talk over him. That's what a good team has to do. God makes everybody good, but you have to figure out what it is. Aaron is going to be good at playing football and leading. Matt LaFleur is going to be good at getting the proper game work together, like everybody come together and implement the game plan.
As the clock winds down, any final thoughts for LeRoy, John, from you?
No, I just, you jogged my memory in that I interviewed Bill Romanowski one time in terms of age, and he was an older linebacker finishing his career with the Oakland Raiders. And he said, he pointed to Jerry Rice, who was about 38, 39, and Rich Gannon, who was 37. He said, we listen to the same music, our families are the same age, we do things together. When Brett Favre became the icon and got older, it seemed like some of the rookies would rather be interested in dating his daughter, kind of a thing. It's just a whole different mindset than
It is.
So that's a really good point you raised.
Yeah, I think they'll get along great because they're two young guys and, you know, fiery and innovative. I don't know what that word means, but I think if you use that word in an interview, you got a job.
Yeah.
But it works. It works. I think it'll work good because you know why it must work? You got thousands of fans won't rest until it works. And the one thing I will say in closing, the one guy that I feel good about, sleep good at night when I go to bed, is the way Murphy is running this franchise. I feel good
Why
about
are you
what
such
he's
a
doing.
big fan?
'Cause I think he's the kind of guy that likes to hear other people's opinion. He's a leader. And I think that's the reason why when he fired Mike McCarthy, it made sense for him to hire the coach. He's not sitting back like most GMs and just not have no skin in the game. He's in the game now because he's hired, you know, Gutekunst, he's hired LaFleur. This will work. And I think for the most part, it's a little unconventional. People are used to the Ron Wolf days. The GM was out there. But when here you got can be looked at as an owner being involved to make sure that I understand fans, things got out of hand, I will fix it, and I'll get back to you. I like that. I like when a guy sits there and have his door open where you can come up with ideas instead of having it locked and just only talking to two people where the silos are up. You don't need that now. You need to have a team-oriented atmosphere, and Murphy is put in a position, will be put in a position to get the guy he wanted to where everybody will be happy with, and that was Matt LaFleur, and it will work.
And will he command the locker room? Final question.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I think he's already done that. Matt LaFleur, when he's down there, people respect what he's doing. And I think not only that, when you see Murphy around in the locker room, people respect what he's doing. Of course, people respect what number 12 is doing because he's the guy that you're going to run through that wall for. And I want people to understand that. You have a clean canvas now. That canvas, it was all painted all different colors like a rainbow. It's clean. You can write your own narrative. You don't have to worry about it and be real sensitive to be what people say on the internet. Only you control what, at the end of the day, what the score is going to be. The players control that.
Well, we appreciate you, LeRoy Butler, who will be in Canton soon, and we would run through a wall, wouldn't we, John?
We sure would.
I hope it made a paper, though.
Both on the Tom Pipines Show with John Dodds at TomPipines.com and WisconsinSportsStream.com. It was wonderful to be with you guys. We'll do this again, I hope, soon.